So here we are, we're back here. So we're able to get our response and we know everything is working fine, right? In fact, we come down here, see run, we can see horoscopes accurately and we have the whole payload coming in. That's very good. So happy day for sure. But let's probe in and see how can we extract the data that we need. Because remember, as I said before, at this point here, this whole payload here is an array. But inside we don't have objects. Indeed, we have another array inside of it, meaning this first index of this bigger array, the whole payload, is the first one which contains also an array which contains two items. We know this because we have this comma there. So this is 0th index of this array here, and then this is the first index. Okay, so we need to create an actual object, a question object, which will contain this, the trivia question, and as well as also the true or false, whether this trivia question is true or false. So that's the key. To do that, we need to traverse through, we need to parse through and extract the right information at the right time. So what are we going to do here? Obviously, all of that has to come here. I'm going to get rid of this. Now, let's close this. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to say for like that. I'm going to say int I is equal to 0. So I'm just setting things up. I is less response dot length I plus plus. Got to put semicolon there. Very good. So we have our skeleton for our for loop. Now that we are able to get this whole thing here, right? We are ready to loop through and start to retrieve each item. So at this point here, I'm going to say response dot. Now, what is this response? Well, this response is the whole payload, right? Everything JSON array that we showed you there. And then I'm going to say get JSON array. Well, why is it get JSON array, not get JSON object? Well, because we said here that we don't have an object here. We want to create an object later, right? But we have instead an array. So we are probing in and say, okay, we got our JSON main JSON. We want to go in and get the first item. That's what we're saying here. Well, to get the first item, we have to pass an index. So what would that be? Would be the I. And then I'm going to say get something inside of that index. Well, I want to get the first item inside of our array, the inner array. So I'm going to get this one here, right? So for each one of these arrays, I'm going to go and get the first index. That's what I'm doing here. Now I have a problem here because that first index is indeed a string. So I'm going to say dot to string like that. Now, I still have a little bit of problem here. Hover over, again, because we're talking about JSON array, we're getting things from the internet, and it's a JSON and all that stuff. We need to put all of that inside of a try and catch there, okay? Be happy like that. So it looks like I don't have to put to string either. Okay, let's just follow what they want, and there we go. Okay, we don't have to put unnecessary things if we don't have to. There we go. Let's save this and run once again and see what's going to happen now. Okay, let's run this. No need to look at the app because there's really nothing there. But I'm going to come down here and see what's going to happen. Let's go to our logcat. Let's find debug. I'm going to say JSON. There we go. Horoscopes. And then now we're getting exactly all the things that we want. Okay, so we have that now. What I'm going to do, I'm going to actually put that inside of a log. D like that. JSON like this. And response, I'm going to copy, get all of that out of there and put just inside here. So plus, there we go. Get rid of that. So exactly what we had before. Let's save now. I'm going to see what's going to happen. Let's run. And we can see all these responses are showing. All of these are what we're getting from our payload. All of these. Okay, there's a lot of them. So we now going through this whole payload here and getting the first item of inner index of each array. That's what we're doing. So there's a lot of things here, right? That's the reason why we see all of this working. Good. So we're able to do that. So if we can get the first item or the first index, which is the question, how can we get the true or false? Well, we can do the same thing, right? So if I come here and copy this JSON again, instead of get 0, I'm going to say get 1, right? Let's see what's going to happen. Let's save this. Let's say here JSON 2, just to differentiate. Let's go ahead and actually do a full run. And voila, we can see the trues, the false, the true, JSON2, false, and so forth. So we are actually getting what we want. And because we know this is totally fine, as you can see, it's working, but because we know that this is indeed a Boolean, I could have just got, say, get Boolean like that and get index 1. That will be probably the best way to do that, especially because we are actually going to create the object for the question. You will see that coming in very handy. Very good. So we're able to extract the data for each of the array inside of the bigger array, the parent array, right? So at this point here, all is good. But what we really want to do really is to create what? Well, we want to create a list containing the question. That way, when we are here in main, we can just get those objects already set up. So it's going to have a question and whether it's true or false, which is exactly what we want it to do. If we go to model here, question, right? We have the answer and we have the Boolean true or false. That's what we want to do. To do that, we must do the following. Well, first of all, we must come down here and instantiate our object. So I'm going to come here and say question.set answer. It requires what? A string, right? Which is this one here. So I want to go and get the first item, right? Which is the question. Okay. So exactly what we did before here. I'm just copy this. Like that. And now we have an issue because even though at this point here we didn't have to say toString, but here because the set answer requires a string, I'm just going to go ahead and say .toString again. Okay, there we go. Now I've set it up to where my set answer is being set here, and I'm going to do the same thing. Set is true or answer true. I'm going to pass this here. So I'm going to pass this here. I'm going to copy this. You notice why I wanted to actually say get Boolean. This is why, because this expects a Boolean. That's why we say get Boolean instead of just get. All right, there we go. So now we have created our object. And notice this is happening each time our for loop goes. So if we have 10,000 questions and answers, it's going to go and create all this object question here. So now as an object, it will have this question, the answer I should say, and of course, whether it's true or false. You see? So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and comment this out so we don't have clutter here. Okay, so once we're doing that, then what is it next we need to do? Well, remember, what we're trying to do here is to actually return a list of questions, right? Get questions. It doesn't say get question, get questions. So we even have here a return type, which we say it's null at this point. So what we need to do is actually take this question array list that we created and start adding all the questions that we created, all these objects we created here, right? So I can come here, I'm going to say add question objects to array list, or I should say to list, same thing. Okay, so how do we do that? Well, I say array list, question array list, I should say, dot add, and I'm going to add what? In fact, you can see it tells us exactly what to add, question element. Well, there we go. Once we have this done, I can come down here and return it, because at this point, it's going to have all of the questions inside. There we go. Very good. And we're done for now, of course. All right, so in the next video, we are going to continue working on our listener here, our JSON array request, and I'm going to show you something very interesting that is happening at this point. In fact, if we run this at this point here, get question, it's still going to work, but at this point, we're just running whatever it's inside here. Well, in fact, probably not going to show anything because we comment this out, but if we're going to comment this, everything should work fine, no problem. But you will see what problem we're going to have to solve soon.